What's up, my content connoisseurs? It's Cody. Welcome to another episode of Press Play Reviews. Today we're going to be taking on episode 5 of The Mandalorian. We've got a lot to discuss in a short amount of time, so let's dive on in. The Mandalorian episode 5, The Gunslinger. This episode is undoubtedly the one that makes it seem very Western style to it, that spaghetti Western that we've talked about before in our previous discussions, where it is very Quentin Tarantino, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood style to it, that spaghetti Western feel, and I really enjoy that, and a lot of other people are going to start enjoying that too, because if you're not familiar with spaghetti Westerns, they definitely romanticize the aspects of the old Wild West to those heroes, that nameless hero that rides off into the sunset, and that's really great with how they're doing it. We end up picking up right away, maybe a few moments short after the Mandalorian leaves Cara Dune in that small village in the previous episode, after they were attacked and they had to deal with those space Vikings and the ATST and all that, and he's being chased down by another bounty hunter. Well, he makes short work of the bounty hunter. It's nothing notable. I did like the line where he says, I can either bring you in cold or I can bring you in warm, or, and then, after the bounty hunter ends up shooting down the Mandalorian, he's like, that's my line, and he just proceeds to blow the crap out of the other guy, and he's like, ah, it's so cheesy. It was super, like, it's funny, but anyways, I'm rambling on about the event. So, is after he gets shot down, his engines, the Mandalorian ends up having to take kind of like a beeline towards another planet. In the distance, it's kind of noticeable if you are very familiar with Star Wars, if you've read the comics like I have, or huge Star Wars fans have. If you're familiar, you can just tell when a certain planet is a certain planet. Like Endor is very blue with a lot of green. It looks like Earth. It's probably like the only Earth-looking planet. It's a moon, but it's the only Earth-looking planet in Star Wars. Coruscant is a big sea planet. You just see the giant circles around it. You can recognize the planet. Well, this one is very recognizable off in the distance, and it's Tatooine, and it's really cool. So the Mandalorian ends up making a beeline for Tatooine itself, and it only confirms that right away as soon as he gets a transmission, say, hey, I need to land, and it's like, all right, land at the Mos Eisley landing strip or something like that. And I'm like, okay, cool, we're going to Mos Eisley, where, only the most villainous scum go. It's so cool. I absolutely love Tatooine. It's probably the most iconic Star Wars planet outside of Endor, from at least the original trilogy. Definitely by name, it's the most iconic Star Wars planet, hands down. But, so, the Mandalorian ends up landing in this kind of like junker shop trade thing. It's like a mechanic shop, and it very much so looks like Watto's mechanic shop from the prequel trilogy, where Anakin was first seen. And he ends up running into this lady, and she comes out, and she's like, wow, I've seen that you were in maybe a gunfight. It's going to be a little more expensive to kind of fix up your ship. So the Mandalorian brings out some credits, says, hey, I can make do on the other money. And she's like, okay. And so they kind of work out something, very minimal interaction there. But, as soon as he leaves for the Mos Eisley Cantina, and we'll get to that, because this is probably one of the coolest. This episode is very fan service, because, you see a lot of iconic droids, and a lot of iconic aliens and scenery. This is probably the most fan service episode out of the 5 that we've seen thus far, and it's great. But anyway, so, as soon as he leaves, the lady kind of takes a look at the ship, and, she just hears something banging around. It ends up, it's Baby Yoda. We know who it is. And so he comes out, and the lady, she's like, what is this thing? I don't know what it is. So she picks it up. She's like, it's probably hungry. So she tells her little droid, she's like, go get it something fleshy, something meaty. It's kind of funny, because she's treating it like it's a pet. She knows it's a baby, but the way she just, like, everybody kind of interacts with Baby Yoda, because they're not sure what it is. Because Yoda's species is very rarely ever seen in the entirety of Star Wars canon, new and old. But so she's not sure what to do with it. She's not sure if it's a baby. Like she holds it like a baby and talks to it like it is, but she also kind of wants to feed it like it's a dog. Like she doesn't know what it is. It's super funny, and hijinks ensues and everything there. I wish they spent maybe a little more time with kind of the interaction with Baby Yoda and some of the other surroundings, as opposed to just a lot of background stuff. I know the show's mainly about the Mandalorian, but it's just personal nitpick of the series so far. It's nothing serious, drastic. But what's really cool is when we get to the cantina and the Mando walks in, and it has that very familiar atmosphere from the prequel trilogy and from the OT. So, he just walks in to the cantina, and it just does kind of like a panning circle of a camera pan around the entire scene. You just see, just like in A New Hope, Episode 4, aliens are just enjoying the drinks. It's a very sketchy looking bar. A lot of gangsters, a lot of criminals, bounty hunters. All kinds of scum and villainy. So he ends up asking the bartender, "Hey, are there any jobs? I'm looking for a quick way to make some money, just so I can pay off, the fee for fixing up my ship, the mechanic." So then it turns around, because this guy in the background says, "I can help you out there, Mando." And you see this guy he's got his legs propped up on the table. He's got a blaster in his hand, and he's kind of reminiscent of Han Solo. The Mando ends up talking to him, and the Mandalorian says, "All right, what do you got?" And he's like, "Well, I've got this puck," and he puts it down, and it shows this lady, and he's like, "You know who this is?" And so the kid's like, "Yeah, she's an assassin," and he's like, "She's an assassin that's worked for high profile, politicians and gangsters and stuff, most notably the Hutts." And if you're not familiar with the Hutts, which you should be, they're basically the gangsters, the mafia of the Outer Rim, most notably Jabba the Hutt, who ran, goings-ons on Tatooine itself before he was ousted in Return of the Jedi by Leia and Luke and them. But so it's their target is a high-profile assassin, and it's kind of cool because I want to see where this goes, and it goes really well later in the episode. But this guy's like, "Hey, I just need your help. I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to make a way so I can get into the guild and get contracts, build up a reputation through the guild and get more contracts later on." He's like, "I will give you 100% of the profits proceeding. I don't care. You can take all that. I just want a way to get into the guild and make my name known." So Mandalorian's reluctant, and he's like, "All right, go get a couple speeders. We got to cross the Dune Sea." As soon as they end up leaving the cantina, they get their speeder bikes. They cross the Dune Sea, and the first problem they come across are some Tusken Raiders. And Tusken Raiders being one of my personal favorite alien races in Star Wars, they pose kind of a problem. Because the Mandalorian's like, "Hey, they think everybody else on this planet are just trespassing. They believe they're the natives there. They're native to the deserts of Tatooine." So the kid makes a smart aleck remark and whatever, and so the Mando's like, "All right, tell that to them." And he turns around, and he's like, "Oh crap!" And there's two of them standing right there, armed and just ready to go. And so before the kid pulls out his blaster and does something really stupid, the Mando's like, "Hold on, just give me a second." And he starts, signing with them. And this is something that I don't ever believe has been shown. At least not that I've seen from, reading a lot of the previous material and legends and stuff, is, just communicating with the Tusken Raiders, but he just signs with them, and he's like, "Hey, we're going to make a trade." He's like, what are we going to trade? So he takes the kid's, really fancy binoculars, and he tosses it to him, and the Tusken Raiders are like, "Okay, you got permission." And the kid's like, "Those were brand new." He's like, "All right, tell that to them." He keeps, kind of one-upping this kid, and it's really funny. Because he's clearly inexperienced in the bounty hunter field, and, how having to deal with, natives and just this kind of contract work in general. That's, again, why he's not in the guild yet. So they make their way across the Dune Sea, and their next stop that they come across is a dewback. And if you're not familiar with them, they're basically these giant steeds, like giant lizards, like huge-looking lizards. Komodo dragon-looking lizards almost. And one of them It's just kind of roaming across the dune sea, across the sand, and it ends up having a dead guy on it. Well, the dead guy is another bounty hunter that tried to go after this high profile assassin, this high profile target that the kid was assigned to, and he ended up, just proving that the Mando's like, yeah, this lady's dangerous. Don't go on your own. You're gonna die. And so they end up kind of, finding more stuff, and finds another tracker and finds out that, well, the guy's dead, so the lady's got to be nearby because he's, freshly killed almost. So they end up continuing on their way, and they end up coming across the lady. So the Mandalorian notices another little spot, and he's like, all right, we're going to set up camp here and stuff. So, they just they keep a watchful eye, and the Mandalorian ends up, kind of going out into this trench area between these two giant dune hills, and he ends up getting shot. Well, because of his armor, he's like, oh crap, let's get out of here, and let's just set up a post to kind of keep an eye on this lady. She's super deadly, bro. She's got a sniper rifle. So they end up taking both watch throughout the night, and they're trying to come up with a plan of how they're going to deal with this lady, because she's got a sniper rifle, she's got them pinned, and she's got the high ground, and I have the high ground. It's so bad, but just the references in this episode are in abundance. It's great. It's a very fan service episode. It's awesome. So the kid takes the first watch, and then he's like, hey, Mando, it's sunrise. It's time for you to take up the next watch. The Mandalorian's just, chilling across, his arms crossed, and it seems like he's just kind of sleeping or whatever. And so the kid, just starts monologuing and stuff, and he points the blaster. He's like, yeah, I could take you out so easy, and puts his blaster back, and then the Mandalorian's like, are you done? He's like, yep. Okay, kind of makes a fool of himself. It's so good. I absolutely love this episode. Probably the best episode, out of the 5 so far. I said that about the last one, but this one takes the cake with its fan service and just the interaction with the characters and stuff. It's awesome. I love it. So they end up coming up with the plan where both the kid and the Mando are on their speeders, and then they're crossing that trench area between the two dune hills. And so, the lady ends up taking fire at these incoming speeder bikes, and they've got a fair amount, I'd say a few hundred yards of distance to cover. So they end up shooting flares and kind of blinding her, because her scope's kind of, it's very, it's a technological telescope on her blaster that's trying to, zoom in on these guys, but she's getting blinded. So she takes off her thing, and she's trying to, see, and she notices that they're kind of veering off and trying to go around her, and then they end up doing it again. And when she finally gets the Mandalorian in her sights, in her crosshairs, she before she can fire, the kid's behind her. He's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And she's like, crap. So, they end up subduing her and stuff, putting her in restraints, and, getting ready to go back. And before they do, the Mandalorian's like, hey, one of our bikes was destroyed, and, we only have the one, so we're going to have to find another transport. So the Mandalorian ends up talking back and forth with the kid and stuff, and he ends up saying, hey, you need to sit here and watch her. Don't do anything stupid. And he ends up going back, the Mando does, to look for the dewback that they had seen previously, and he ends up tracking it down and stuff. And so the lady, while the Mando's gone, ends up trying to make a deal with this kid, and says, hey, why don't you, do this? He seems like he's trying to, take full charge of everything, What's to prevent him from taking full credit for everything, And the kid's like, I already said he could have all the money. She's like, but didn't you hear that there's a Mandalorian that betrayed the guild, and she's like, he's been seen with a kid, rumor has it, and this and that. And so the guy's like, oh no, because before they left the cantina, they, made a pit stop at the Junker's mechanic shop, and the kid ended up seeing the baby Yoda and recognize the Mandalorian. It's the one that, is the traded to the guild. And he's like, oh, puts two and two together. And so he's like, okay. And so the lady tries to convince him to take her restraints off. She's like, I'll help you. And, it's like, I'm like, oh, God, this lady's going to try and become, like, the enemy of the Mando. Try to take, him back or whatever. Do what she can to, save her own rear end. Well, it ends up the kid just takes a blaster and he shoots her. And he's like, thanks for the advice. Because she tells him not to trust anybody. And he, at first I was like, he's going to end up dead. This kid's just, he's not going to make it as a bounty hunter. He's not cut out for this. So she ends up getting shot. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't see that coming. And he takes the advice. He ends up taking the speeder, takes off. And and then the Mandalorian ends up coming back on the dewback. And he notices the lady's dead. And the kid's gone. And he's like, damn. All right, so he ends up going back to the shop, and he's just walking around with his blaster drawn, and sure enough, the kid took Baby Yoda and the mechanic hostage, and so he's like, I'm gonna take this kid back, and I'm gonna take you out, and I'm gonna make a reputation for myself. I'm gonna make a name for myself. Well, firefights starts happening and stuff, and this kid, I thought was going to be, a little more badass than he was, but he wasn't, sadly, and he ends up getting shot. Well, that was short-lived for the kid, so the Mandalorian ends up, paying the lady, taking Baby Yoda, and he ends up leaving the planet. Well, before the episode ends, it pans back to where that high-profile assassin, their target, was shot and left for dead, and it shows, from the waist down, this guy just like kneeling over, checking to see if she's dead, and then it just cuts out. And I'm really excited to see if this is somebody, I don't think it's going to be any, previously known Star Wars characters. A lot of fans are speculating that it might be Boba Fett. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. But I'm speculating that it's going to be Giancarlo Esposito, the guy who played Gus Fring from Breaking Bad. Because he is slated to be cast as a major antagonist to the Mandalorian in the upcoming episodes. We don't know much about him, but given the fact that we know he's going to appear in the show at some point, he's going to have a prominent role. But we don't know exactly what that role is. We just know that he's going to be a huge threat to the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, and I'm guessing that it's going to be Giancarlo Esposito's character. And I am so excited. I absolutely loved his role in Breaking Bad as Gus Fring because he was just such a well-mannered, intelligent villain. And if he brings that same kind of, acting chops to this role, we could potentially see a really interesting Star Wars villain. Our first look at a huge threat for the upcoming episodes, maybe for the seasons. We don't know, but if this is Giancarlo's character, I am so excited because he is a fantastic actor, and he's a big name in TV, not so much in movies, but definitely a bigger name in television shows and stuff. And I'm just so excited. This episode was actually pretty cut and dry. It was like I said, it was my personal favorite episode of the one so far, mainly for the fan service and stuff. The interaction with the characters, the settings. It is feeling like it is definitely bringing you into the Star Wars mythos, and it is doing a solid job up to this point. So, like I said, I can't wait to see what they do further. Hopefully this is Giancarlo Esposito's character. I can't wait to see how he interacts with Pedro Pascal's The Mando. I want to see more of what they're going to do with Baby Yoda and stuff. I don't think there's too many episodes left in this season. I think there's like maybe 4 or 5. I'd have to look it up. They did say somewhere that they did have slated X amount of episodes for the first season. Usually first seasons of TV shows have like 10, maybe 11 or 12 episodes, just to see how it goes. And then later seasons will have more, like 15, 20 plus. But that's it. So folks, have a popcorn, grab a soda, press play for these reviews. Thanks. Bye.